In this video, I'll be going over my 2025 to 2026 winter forecast, as it's likely to be an insane winter with a lot of uncertainties, with a crucial INSO pattern that will determine how insane this winter may be. I'll also show you multiple graphs so that way you'll be able to know if you'll see a below average or above average winter season. Let's go right on into this season's winter forecast. So what is the INSO phase, how does it affect us, and how crucial is it? The INSO phase is all about sea surface temperatures in the Eastern Pacific. If it's cooler than average, like you see here, typically it's going to be heading into a La Nina. If it's about average, it's a neutral phase, and if it's above average, it's typically an El Nino. So how do these big fancy words affect us here in the US? Well, this is a El Nino winter pattern, warmer in the northern tier of the US, cooler, wetter, and typically more above average snowfall in the southern US, drier out towards the Ohio Valley in the Midwest. This is a neutral phase. This is where it's typically cooler in the northeastern US, whilst it's warm and more above average rainfall across the southeastern US and warm and drier across the southwestern US. Then there's the La Nina INSO phase. This typically is the most active for winter weather across the northern US, central US, and the northeastern US, with cooler than average temperatures, with above average chances for rainfall across much of those same areas. However, this leads to a less active winter across the southeastern US into the southern and southwestern United States. So the INSO phase is a very important, crucial, and overall very influential pattern that occurs all year round, but it does me no good to tell you what these phases do if you don't know which one we're heading into. So here's the official CPC outlook on our probabilities for each phase. You can see here in the blue, that is the La Nina, the gray is your neutral, and the red is your El Nino. It is highly unlikely we end up with an El Nino phase over the next couple of months, but a La Nina and neutral almost have an equal probability of forming in the peak winter months, being December, January, and February in the middle of your screen. So let's dive on into my temperature outlook for November and December, and you can see there is a lot of above average colors on your screen. I do think we will be pretty inactive winter-wise across much of the US for November and December, with maybe the exception of the far northern and northwestern US, as we could have a sneaky clipper or two end up bringing some snow totals to the central and northern US. Now, that's not to say we won't have a random snowstorm somewhere in the eastern or central US going into December. I just think it's a lot less likely in the month of November and December. But I do expect well above average temperatures across much of the US, especially the southwestern and southeastern US, through November and December. Before I dive on into the rest of this season's forecast, I ask if you guys can go ahead and hit that like button, share this video with your family, friends, social media to help spread weather awareness about this upcoming winter season. And if you're new to the channel, consider hitting that subscribe button with a notification bell set to all so you know when I go live or upload another video. Let's go right back on into this season's forecast. Now, taking a look here at my precipitation outlook for November and December, I'm anticipating a slightly above average chance for rainfall across the northwestern US, with a below average chance for rainfall across much of the southern and southwestern US. Also could have a slight chance for below average rainfall across the southeastern United States. And here's where things get crazy. This is my temperature outlook for January and February, and you can see on the left hand side of your screen, I expect well above average temperatures across the western US as well as into the southwestern US, slightly above average chance for warmer temperatures across the southern and southeastern United States. But what sticks out the most here is that huge area of very well below average temperatures across a very large chunk of the northern and northeastern United States, with still slightly below average temperatures going all the way as far south as Georgia, South Carolina, and northern Oklahoma. Now, I do think this could go even more to the south-southwest, but that could be a little bit too crazy, so I decided not to, push that slightly below average chance too far off to the south. But still, I think we could get some slightly below average temperatures, possibly as far south as Louisiana and northern Texas, depending on how crazy those Arctic blasts will be. So I do think this temperature forecast could be a little bit on the conservative side, especially when you go towards the south central United States. Here's my precipitation outlook for January and February. I anticipate a very well below average chance for rainfall across the southwestern and south central United States, as well as into the northwestern US. Now, there is some uncertainty on how far to the northwest that may go. Originally, I had that well below average going all the way up into Washington state, but I took that out because I do think we could get a couple atmospheric rivers a little bit further up north that possibly increase the rainfall totals across portions of Oregon and Washington state. That could extend into Northern California as well, so I'm not very confident on that northwest portion of your temperature outlook. Now, there's going to be a pretty fine line on where you could see below average and slightly above average chances for rainfall, especially if you live in North Carolina, Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, or Virginia. I can only give a rough estimate on where our most likely tracks for snowstorms will be, and it's going to be somewhere where it's not slightly above and it's not slightly below. That's where your low pressure should track, resulting in below average chance for precipitation south of that low pressure, above average north of that low pressure. It's tricky to say exactly where they'll track, but this is my general thinking. I also think lake effect snow will be absolutely huge this season, especially if you live in upstate far northern New York or around the Buffalo, New York area. Those two areas should be absolute machines for lake effect snowfall this season. Even back out towards western Michigan will probably end up with an above average season just because of those lake effect snowfall events. And it's also tricky to say how above average areas in like Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio may be, because again, we don't know exactly where those low pressures are going to track. They're going to vary from system to system, and it just all depends on the timing of those cold fronts, the Arctic blast, mixed in with your moisture. But the good news is, if you are a snow lover out there in the Midwest, the northern US, and especially the northeastern US, this is probably going to be a pretty insane snow season for y'all. Just like I did last year, I did it again this year, and I'm going to give you two main winter season forecast graphics. This one is showing overall chances for above average or below average snowfall this season. I didn't include the probabilities on your map because it would be too messy, so try to follow along here. So if you're in the gray area, that's a 50-50 shot. 50% chance it's above average, 50% chance it's below average. Color above that is a 60-40. That includes portions like northern Idaho back into North Carolina, northern Tennessee. That's a 60-40 chance. 60% chance that you have an above average winter season, 40% chance below. Color above that is 70-30. Color above that is 80-20. And then the last color in the northeastern US is a 90-10, meaning there's a 90% chance that you see a above average winter season. Then going into the yellow area, there's a 40-60 shot this winter season. That's a 40% chance above average, 60% chance below average. Orange area is a 30-70, only a 30% chance of it being above average, 70% chance it is a below average winter season. Now, some people are going to end up seeing well above average in the orange area. Mountain areas could easily end up being isolated above average areas, and in the southeastern US like Florida, well shoot, your average is 0 inches of snow, so you're probably going to get 0 inches of snow. So this map's definitely not perfect, but it's just to give you a general idea of your probabilities this winter season. It's not meant to be taken very, very seriously. And now it is time for the final graphic of this winter season forecast video. So let's start with the southeastern and south central US in that dark red area. That's the severe weather region. That's where we're probably going to see a couple of severe threats, maybe even a significant severe threat or two, kind of like what we saw last year, but I think this year could be a little bit slightly more elevated than what we had last year, but definitely a chance for an outbreak or two of tornadoes out in Dixie Alley. Specifically, I'd say probably late November into December, and then when you get into January, that decreases drastically. Up in the northwestern portion of the US, just stormy. You know, we're going to have snow in the higher elevations, but it's really going to be an about average season up there, maybe below average, depending on exactly where you are. The lower elevation, probably the better chance for a below average winter season, if you even see snow up there. And then if we go over to that color across portions of Texas, southern Florida, southeastern North Carolina, that's your below average chance for snowfall this season. And then in the dark orange area, that's where we're going to have a below average chance for both rain and snow. Higher terrain, if you see snow, you got a below average chance for it this season, although you will still end up getting a very high amount of snowfall because your average in the higher terrain out here, especially in the Rockies in the southwestern US, is very far up there. But areas like obviously Western California, you don't see snow much, especially back out in San Francisco and LA. So you have a below average chance for rainfall. And then if we go ahead and look up here into the northwest, not the Pacific Northwest, but kind of the northwest portion of the US there, just a normal snow season. It's just going to be normal snow. It's about average, maybe a little bit below average on the west side of that, closer to like northeastern Utah, closer to southeastern Idaho, and then a bit normal as you get closer to Montana, northeastern Colorado, northeastern Wyoming. And then if you're in that kind of purplish dark blue, very dark blue color there, that is just wild, absurd Arctic blast. We're talking about crazy blast, frequent blast of frigid cold air, frequent negative temperatures, possibly on the weekly basis, especially if you're in North Dakota, South Dakota. This is really going to be present as we go from about Christmas and on Christmas all the way till early March, maybe late February. Very frequent Arctic blast. Very crazy, insane winter season ahead if you live in that kind of dark blue color there. Then if we go to the purple area on the far right and upper right corner of your screen, that's where we have the risk for nor'easters. So I do think we could see maybe 2 nor'easters this year. I'm not going to go anything crazier than that. 1 or 2. I'm definitely more towards 2 nor'easters being possible across the eastern portions of the U.S. And I do think we could see a I-95 corridor ripper nor'easter that stretches from like central southeastern Virginia, maybe northeastern NC, all the way up the coastline of the eastern U.S. I think that is a very real possibility. January and February. I don't expect this in November or probably even much of December. The later you go in December, the better chance, but really it's going to be January through February, specifically mid-January through late February, where we have the highest chance for those nor'easters across the eastern tier of the U.S. Then that pink area, yeah, if you live in North Carolina, Virginia, you're used to it by now. Even Tennessee, pretty much every year, battle zone. I think we have a very high chance to see multiple ice storms this year. And some of you guys in that pink area, you're going to be above average. Some areas are going to be below average. Best chance for an above average season by a milestone is going to be areas like central Kansas, northern Kansas, West Virginia, northern Kentucky, central Missouri. Way better chance for an above average winter season compared to areas like southern Tennessee or southern Oklahoma. But overall, it's going to be a big-time battle zone. Ice storms, above average snowfall in some areas, below average snowfall in some areas. Nor'easters in some of that pink area, specifically could be eastern Virginia, northeastern North Carolina. Obviously, they call them nor'easters for a reason. But a very wild, insane winter season ahead, specifically in that battle zone area, the wild Arctic blast zone area, and the nor'easter. That covers very high population of the United States. Also want to mention the severe weather zone for the people out there in central Tennessee, central Arkansas, central Oklahoma. Really, this red area could be stretched a little bit more north, even into southern Kentucky, southern Missouri, and southern Kansas, because we don't know, like I mentioned earlier in this video, exactly where those low pressures track. All right, y'all, that's going to be it for this winter season forecast here. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did enjoy, make sure you hit that like button, share this video with your family, friends, social media, help spread weather awareness about this upcoming winter season. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day, and I hope that you get what you're wishing for this winter season, whether that be more snow or less snow. Stay safe, watch for your weather, the tropics, and watch the snowfall. Goodbye.